Hello, welcome to the news desk. I'm a news dude, and here's more news. Chaos descends on the White House. The president tweets that there's no chaos. Meanwhile, the president says out loud that he loves chaos. It's a real he said, he also said situation. But one thing's for sure, nobody can stop talking about the White House's chaotic disarray of... I'm sorry, have we done this before? It sounds familiar. It looks... Anyway, it's a real chaotic Oval Office, despite what the president says. Even Time magazine weighed in with a cover depicting something I've seen before. Zoom in. That's from a year and like a few days ago. Can we get some new news? Thank you. Here's more news. It's recently been reported that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has found evidence that Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos's brother, Eric Prince, traveled to the Seychelles to create a back channel to the Kremlin. And we found out about that meeting like a year ago. And sure, Eric lied about it back then, but it was obviously true, because obviously it's easier to have a back channel than to meet with the Russian ambassador and foreign minister at Vladimir Putin's request, literally hours after firing the FBI director investigating you for crimes. Because in that case, you'd have to bar any American press from the meeting, allow Russian state media into the meeting, and during the meeting, brag about firing the FBI director investigating you for crimes. So instead, a back channel. Seemingly confirmed by Mueller, but again, we know, dude. Hurry up. Or maybe we should just stop talking about Russia so much. There's not much we can do about it until the investigation concludes. And yes, it's fun to talk about the drama and these dumb idiots and their obvious crimes. Hell, recently there was a whole day when the news stopped, and the only thing that happened was a former Trump aide got increasingly erratic and allegedly drunk on every single news channel talking about how he's not going to comply with Mueller's investigation because it's bullshit that he has to read all of his emails between himself and Roger Stone and then hand them over to the FBI, which implies that there's something incriminating that he wants to take care of first. But no, Sam, all you gotta do is search from, Roger Stone has a tattoo of American hero Richard Nixon on his back at, seriously, he's very proud of his Richard Nixon back tattoo.com, select all, and then send them to the FBI. But after complaining about a subpoena from the FBI for his emails regarding an investigation into the president, Donald Trump, a man he hates, he went on to say that he thinks Carter Page colluded with Russia, that he challenges Mueller to arrest him, despite every interviewer saying he will, and then he somberly said, based on the FBI's questions, they definitely have something on the president. And then by the end of the day, he was like, never mind, I will cooperate. And the past minute was just me describing what happened. How can you get to everything when we have to talk about the president's drunk old crime buddy all day? Did you know that there was a teacher's strike in West Virginia last week? For more than a week. Most news didn't really talk about it. Massive, historical, statewide strike, and they got what they wanted after a unanimous vote by the state legislature. And Mueller's got Paul Manafort fitted with 2 different tracking devices now. I think we can safely shift our focus to other things. So, speaking of teachers, arm teachers with guns. What the kind of thing is that to make me say? Me? Here's more news. A school shooting, another school shoot, several more school shootings since the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. As of this taping, 11 incidents involving guns at school since Parkland. Some involving students shooting students, some involving a teacher shooting his own gun in the school 1 year after trying to confess to murder, some involving a school liaison officer talking to some students when a 3rd grader pulled the trigger on his holstered gun, causing it to go off, despite the holster being equipped with a trigger guard designed to prevent such accidental discharges by, say, a 3rd grader near a gun. But anyway, since the Parkland shooting, armed teachers is a thing the country has decided is a valid suggestion just because our dumb president said it out loud with his moron mouth. Not only will school shootings be stopped, but it will make the classroom generally safer and help the kids focus thanks to the some teachers with guns near children. After hearing this idea on Fox News or some dipshit who paid to be at a party at the president's private club, the president floated the armed teachers idea to a room full of people affected by gun violence. And despite previously scoffing at and denying the idea of wanting to arm teachers, Trump now says, yeah, but I just mean, like, not all of them, specifying 10% or 20% or whatever. One of those tolerable and not at all frustrating he said he also said situations. The president also agreed to a bunch of actionable gun control measures suggested by the Democrats, only to then meet with the NRA and be like, wait, oh, of course not. Of course, never mind. And back to pushing for more guns and stuff, despite the week of gun incidents in schools culminating in God shouting, "Pay attention, you absolute worst person for this job," when someone shot themselves dead outside the White House. Anyway, guns are a dicey issue, and honestly, who has the time? But it's the news, and will likely be in the news due to rallies and calls for change, or another school shooting, or another kid shooting an officer's allegedly kid-proof gun, and so on. So, briefly, let's use this armed teachers idea as a quick jumping off point to debunk a Second Amendment talking point via the First Amendment, in a segment we like to call a gorgeous instrument of liberty.
The gorgeous instrument of liberty. The gorgeous instrument of liberty.
While the president meets with video game developers to discuss their effect on violence, that sounds familiar. We did this in 1993. While he does all that, like a good, but also smart president, the conversation surrounding guns rolls on, seemingly because of the voices coming from the Parkland shooting survivors. And just like Janie's got a gun, everyone's got a take. And like I said, who has time for it all? But quickly, let's talk about this persistent and pervasive idea that more guns will ultimately help and keep people safe. For example, the NRA are all law-abiding, safe gun owners, which seems true. Although, a recent study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that during 3-day NRA conventions, the gun incidents in the country overall, as well as near the radius of the convention, went down significantly. This has been a gorgeous instrument of liberty.
This is a gorgeous instrument of liberty. The gorgeous instrument of liberty. The gorgeous instrument of liberty.
Here's news. Jared Kushner is being investigated for tying his personal business to government work and access. Now, I know that sounds familiar. Like, oh yeah, so maybe like when Jared's sister, who runs Jared's former company, tried to get Chinese investors involved with their real estate project, One Journal Square, by promoting their relationship with the President of the United States, this guy. Which is correct, Jared, you're a real One Journal Square. And not to get off topic, but I can't wait to read Hope Hicks's White House journal to find out more details about these various crimes, even though her email was hacked, which is the working woman's way of saying, no, I'm not gonna read through all my email and send the FBI the stuff I'm cool with. Can we have the president weigh in on his communications director's hacked personal and campaign email?
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
Cool. But that's for another time. Probably. Look at how much news we have. And oh good! Breaking news, kind of! The Chicago Tribune reported in January that Kushner's family stopped trying to get Chinese investors involved in their real estate project because everyone was like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. So, case closed. Oh no, more breaking news, kind of. Jared Kushner is having a security clearance questioned. Wait, still? Or again? Or again? I know, that's from like a year ago. But fine, okay, yeah. Jared Kushner, husband of the president's crush, is once again having a security clearance questioned after reportedly using his government access and influence to benefit himself and his family financially, while financially benefiting due to his government access and influence. For example, Kushner, with a Q, was denied investment from Qatar for his business, and he reportedly backed a blockade of Qatar in retaliation. Though, don't worry, there are similar stories about similar behavior with at least several other countries. Now, instead of fixing the opioid crisis or bringing peace to the Middle East, Jared was asked to smooth things over with Mexico following a testy phone call between the presidents of Mexico and the United States, during which the United Statesian president said, "You're going to pay for the wall, and also like the wall," you know, like he did last year. And then the other president from the other country said, "Nah, no," like he did last year. So, the president's crush's husband was sent to Mexico to smooth things over with Mexico, but didn't include the ambassador of Mexico. Speaking of blockades, trade wars! Yep, in other news, the president is at it again. Still? And it seems he's announced a major policy decision against his advisors' wishes without consulting everybody necessary and without telling the people who would need to know in order to prepare for executing said policy, leading to chaos and resignations. And I'm sorry, we've definitely done this before. Do we have to do the trade version of it too? Here's that same news. The president announced higher tariffs on steel and aluminum. He has long railed against NAFTA for being unfair, and he's just railed against them generally, and he's just against free trade. And he thinks other countries are screwing us, possibly conflating a trade deficit with a budget deficit, definitely ignoring that we have a trade surplus with Canada, and claiming that trade wars are good, which is historically inaccurate according to historians of trade. So anyway, other countries were like, okay, trade war, I guess. And then Donald Trump, the great understander, decided not to impose the tariff on Mexico and Canada, the North American countries, as some kind of agreement regarding free trade. There, end of movie. And in new news, the president is tangled in a sex scandal involving infidelity, and his party is trying their best to ignore it. What fucking year is it? Stop it! Alright, yeah, so it's being reported that President Trump's lawyer, Michael, I've never been to Prague, just check out the front of my unopened passport, Cohen, Esquire, a lawyer, reportedly obtained a gag order against Stormy Daniels, a woman claiming to have had an affair with the president 4 months after his wife gave birth to his son. The woman is suing Mr. Trump, or as the BBC would put it, Trump wins order to gag porn actress. And give me a break with that headline, for fuck's sake. Come on, BBC. And that's a porn pun too. Anyway, to keep the woman quiet about the affair, she was paid money from the Trump campaign by Trump's lawyer, who later complained that Trump never paid him back, and he did know about it, and now Stormy is suing Mr. Trump. Do we have a photo of that? Beautiful. Because according to the case, he never actually signed the agreement, though if he did, I'm sure it would have just said, "It is a great honor to be here with all of my friends. So amazing, +sign. Will never, capitalized, forget, capitalized." A reference to 9/11, not the Holocaust. But also, even if he did sign it, it probably wouldn't matter, as evidenced by another classic he said he also said situation, this 60 Minutes clip from 2015, in which he discusses NAFTA and how sure it's a signed deal, but so what?
We will either renegotiate it or we will break it, because every agreement has an end.
So I guess, good, cool. Even if he did sign it, he didn't, she can still talk about it. And maybe he'll have to talk about it. And maybe she'll describe his dick in court, and then to prove her wrong, he'll have to show his dick to the court. Like when Jeff Epstein, billionaire and solicitor, curator, and peddler of underage girls, and friend of people like alleged rapist and President Donald Trump, and alleged rapist and former President Bill Clinton, who rode on Epstein's plane dubbed the Lolita Express 26 times according to flight logs. Really got away from myself there. Hold on, all right, let me back up. Maybe Trump will have to show his dick in court, like when Jeff Epstein, the friend of at least 2 presidents, had his dick described by a bunch of underage girls as egg-shaped, and when asked to prove that it wasn't, in order to prove that he isn't a curator and peddler of underage girls, he was like, "Well, I never," and left the deposition. And maybe the president will have to do that. Apparently Stormy has pictures too, which, honestly, no thanks. Bold, I know, but pass on those. Because really, a picture is only worth 8 words.
I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
Cool and necessary thing for a president to have said on a stage, on TV. Anyway, what was I saying? Here's a news. Apparently, 3 months before visiting Moscow and dealing with Russian singer Emina Galarov, the night of the alleged, but also very real, P-tape that's allegedly leveraging the president's cooperation with a foreign leader, well, 3 months before he reportedly turned down the woman's offer to go to his hotel room, according to security of many years, who said he's too smart for that, despite, no he's not. But anyway, 3 months before that night, he was at a nightclub in Vegas with Emina Galarov, a nightclub that has since been shut down due to shows involving, among other things, students urinating on their teacher and women urinating into glasses. And it's just so hard not to talk about this stuff. I'm sorry. I'd like to not, but that's nuts. He's the president. There's a photo of him there, and he's the president. You know? He just is. And he needs to go, so we can stop focusing on him so much. Senator Brian Schatz said on Twitter this week, all of this madness will start to wane if you vote straight ticket Democrat this year. This is not the year to ticket split, or sit it out, or wish you had better choices, or vote third party, or say you aren't into politics, or whatever. We need everyone. And the frustrating thing about this sentiment is that it's pretty true. The madness will start to wane, and we need them to do it. But Brian isn't just saying that he needs us. He's also saying that we need him and them, because we do, because there's no better option. They're the anti-Trump, so they don't need to be held to account or to any other standard. They don't need to give us better ideas about how things should be. So when there's a vote to deregulate Wall Street and roll back dodd-frank, which was implemented to prevent another financial crisis, that bill can pass because 17 Democratic senators will vote for it, including Tim Kaine, who just 2 years ago was ostensibly accepted by the Democratic Party as being the second best one of them all. Another yes vote was Doug Jones, who famously and barely beat this real good horse rider who was also banned from the mall for hitting on underage girls. And it doesn't matter, because we need to elect the party that can get rid of the madness. But if you really think that anti-Trump is enough to win, then use it as an opportunity to be better, even riskier. When a Medicare for All bill is written, make sure every Democrat stands up for it instead of 17 again. When Nancy Pelosi says DACA and gun control don't need to be in the next spending bill, tell her, fucking, yeah, they do. There are no rules anymore. Swing for the fences. Say explicitly that you're going to tax the rich. You'll be fine. Trump literally said he would do that in that 60 Minutes interview from earlier. He said he would tax extremely wealthy people while not taxing poor people at all, and he said he'd have government-funded health care for people who can't afford it.
Some very wealthy are going to be raised. There will be a large segment of our country that will have a zero rate. A zero rate.
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody.
He said all of that, and I don't know if you've noticed, but that dude got to be the president. And he's also said some pretty awful shit. He's also preyed on people's frustrations with the wealthy and powerful while also being one of the wealthy and powerful. And unfortunately, people bought into his grift. But that frustration, that desperation is still there. It's why teachers in West Virginia went on strike for more than a week. It's why there are 554,000 homeless people on any given night in America. Yet there are more than 18 million vacant homes in America. 1% of people have more wealth than the bottom 90% of people combined. And when given the chance, most politicians, regardless of party, will still vote to deregulate Wall Street. Amazon is almost the first company to be worth $1 trillion, and they didn't pay taxes last year. And here's $1 million. Most people don't have this. Here's $1 billion. Jeff Bezos has $127 billion. Amazon is worth $1 trillion. Tax these fuckers. This is a good time to mention the presenting sponsor of Cody's Shody is Amazon of Amazon.com fame, or at least it could be. Hey Amazon, check this out. More news brought to you by Amazon. Treat your workers not so good? Can't wait until robot technology can replace most of them? Well, give me a little bit of your money and I'll still mention stuff like that, but I'll also mention your beautiful products, like the convenient Amazon Echo. Just $129.99. It does a bunch of stuff for you. Oh, it's not even that much? It's $99.99? Wow, that's just a deal right there. Also, use Amazon or Amazon Prime. We got shows and toilet paper and computers and junk. Here's a News, or whatever the show is called, brought to you by Amazon. Not Amazon Prime, the streaming service that makes shows, but just Amazon in general, the company that does all that other stuff. They've got $1 trillion, which is grotesque, but here's a f***ing commercial for them and their stuff. Is an example of what I could say about your product or company if you gave me a little bit of your money. So yeah, Brian, we need everybody to get rid of the madness, but the madness is a symptom of a sickness, and we need you. But don't use this as a free pass to not be better, which is what we need you to be if Trump wasn't the f***ing president. Our votes shouldn't have to be held hostage by you simply because we need to get rid of the madman. You could hashtag resist your way through this, but is resistance enough for you? It's easy to rebel against the evil empire, but it's a lot harder to look at the republic and think, wait, this kind of sucks too. There was slavery. Ray sold scraps of weapons of war for fractions of portions of food. Sure, the empire sucks. Trump's violating the emoluments clause of the Constitution and could have been impeached last year. And sure, he recently told his rich buddy and former advisor about his steel tariff, so the dude dumped a bunch of stock before the announcement, which is just a fun way of saying they did some crimes. And sure, the head of the EPA is allowed to have undisclosed private consulting clients. And sure, the Secretary of the Interior spent $139,000 on new doors for his office. And sure, everything Jared Kushner does. And it's really funny when Trump says super believable stuff like this.
When you talk about innocent, I am truly not involved in any form of collusion with Russia, believe me. That's the last thing I can think of to be involved in.
And sure, that's even funnier considering what Trump's two-tracking device-wearing former campaign manager Paul Manafort said when asked if Trump had no ties to Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
And sure, I really want to watch that other one more time.
When you talk about innocent, I am truly not involved in any form of collusion with Russia, believe me. That's the last thing I can think of to be involved in.
Okay, one more, but cut it off early.
When you talk about innocent, I am truly not...
Cool, dude.
Believe me.
I do. So, sure, the empire sucks and the emperor is hilariously guilty.
No.
Yes, but while he does all that, and while the special counsel does the work he needs to do, teachers in other states like Arizona and Oklahoma are preparing to strike because their schools are turning off power and heat for half the day to save money. Flint's water is still literally poisoned. King Goodbrain is shrinking our national monument specifically to drill for oil when there's a perfectly good battery in the sky. They made a robot to kick homeless people off of benches. The media needs to find a balance in how it covers the Russia sideshow and the White House chaos drama, and the tangible things that are affecting people and the underlying problems contributing to those tangible things, and the people in power who think they can just coast on not being as bad as the worst person.
Nobody can do it like me. Nobody. Nobody can do it like me. Honestly.
And even though this show seems familiar, and a lot of these stories seem familiar, except for massive income inequality leading to the rise of unions, that's unheard of. But I'm hoping to find a balance, a fair balance. To invent a phrase off the top of my head, fair and balanced TMCR look at the news. Report the madness, but also report the sickness that caused the madness. But first, here is a thing. That's what I spent my time on. I was like, I want to do that, and I just did that. All right. Bye! Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching our first episode. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment on all the things that you do on YouTube that you know about, because it's not your first day on YouTube. And if you want to support our show, the Patreon link is in the description. so we can make more of the news show. Hey, how's it going?